Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you back not to Silicon Valley but to Guatemala, a small country often overlooked in the tech race. But from there came a young boy with big dreams, a fierce curiosity, and one powerful mindset. When you're building anything, it's easy to get caught up in your own goals. The salary, the success, the recognition, that's where most people start. But there comes a moment when you realize that the real breakthroughs don't come from asking, "How do I win?" They come from asking, "How do I help?" That's when the game changes. You stop thinking like an individual and start thinking like a builder of systems, of solutions, of movements. It's not that you ignore personal ambition. It's that you attach that ambition to something bigger than yourself. Because when your work begins to benefit thousands or millions of people, it stops being just a product. It becomes a public good, and that kind of thinking is what opens doors, brings unexpected collaborators, and creates a different kind of legacy. Take the example of a simple idea that millions of people interacted with every day. A little box that asks you to prove you're human. Annoying, right? But what if every time someone typed a word into that box, they were actually helping digitize old books, preserving culture and knowledge that would otherwise disappear? That's the power of building for others. You create something functional and behind it, something transformative. Thinking beyond yourself doesn't mean building charities. It means asking, how can I solve a real problem, one that affects not just me or my circle, but the world? You don't need to be in Silicon Valley. You don't need millions in funding. What you need is perspective. You need to recognize that the biggest gaps in the world are often ignored because they don't make immediate profit. But when you fill those gaps, when you solve for what's underserved, you create massive value, sometimes in ways that the market doesn't even recognize yet. It's easy to build things people want. It's harder and more powerful to build things people need, especially when they don't even know they need them yet. That kind of thinking requires empathy. It requires listening. It requires removing yourself from the center of the story and asking, if I could build anything for the world, what would actually matter? And when you build with that mindset, when your default becomes service, not ego, you attract something more than just users. You attract trust, you build momentum, and what starts as a product can evolve into a mission. That shift, from selfish to selfless thinking, isn't just noble. It's strategic, because in the long run, solving real problems for real people at scale is how you build something that lasts. Helping others isn't a side effect of success. It's the reason for it. Most people, when they start something, ask the same question, how can I make money from this? It's logical, it's practical, but it's also limiting. Because when profit becomes the only goal, you begin to make compromises. You cut corners, charge more, exclude people, focus only on what sells. That path can get you short-term success, sure. But if your goal is to build something truly meaningful, something that lasts, you have to start with a different question. How can I make this useful to as many people as possible, especially those who need it the most? That's where purpose enters the picture. Purpose forces you to look beyond your ideal customer, beyond the person who has a credit card in hand. Purpose brings in the people who never get considered the ones who are locked out of opportunity, not because they lack talent or drive, but because they were born on the wrong side of a border. In the wrong economic bracket. When you build for them, when you say, I want this to be free, or accessible, or built for everyone, that's when you're not just solving a problem, you're leveling a playing field. But here's the surprising part. Purpose isn't the opposite of profit. It's a deeper version of it. When you build something that genuinely helps people, that becomes part of their daily lives, they stick around, they tell others, they become your advocates, and suddenly, your user base isn't just growing. It's growing with loyalty, trust, and mission. There's a tendency to think that value comes from charging more, that if something is free, it's less valuable. But the truth is, if you can give something away to millions, and it actually works, it becomes priceless. Because now, instead of serving the top 1%, you're serving the world. And that scale is where real innovation lives. Of course, it's harder. The business model takes longer to figure out. Investors don't always understand it right away. You'll be told you're leaving money on the table, But the table you're building, it's bigger, it has more seats. And eventually, the world notices. Not just because what you made is useful, but because how you made it was generous. Thoughtful, inclusive. There's something powerful about walking into a room and knowing that what you built is helping a kid in a village, a refugee starting over, a single mom chasing a dream. That's not just ROI, that's impact. So no, purpose isn't a distraction from business. It is the business. When your goal is to uplift, to include, to serve, it rewires the entire structure of your product. It pushes you to do better, to innovate, to stretch. And that's where the magic happens. Because in the long run, people don't just support what you do. They believe in why you do it. Most people are obsessed with being right. They work hard to look smart, to sound confident, to avoid failure at all costs. But the truth is, if you're always trying to be right, you're not really learning, you're just protecting your ego. And ego doesn't build great things, curiosity does, obsession with learning does. The willingness to be wrong again and again until the right answer finally shows up, that's what actually leads to breakthroughs. It's strange, but the moment you stop needing to win every argument or prove you know everything, that's when your progress speeds up. Because now you're not trying to defend what you already know. You're trying to grow. You're listening more than you're talking. You're asking better questions. You're turning every obstacle into feedback. That's not weakness, that's strategy. The best ideas often start out as the worst ones. They get criticized, dismissed, misunderstood. And if you're too fragile to take that in, they never evolve. But if you treat every piece of feedback as a puzzle piece instead of a personal attack, something incredible happens. You get better, and so does your idea. You become a student of your own work. And that mindset, that hunger to understand instead of impress, puts you in a category most people never reach. It's easy to chase results. It's harder, and far more powerful, to chase understanding, not just learning facts, but learning how to learn. Learning how to ask the right questions, how to stay open when you're frustrated, how to admit you don't know something and then go figure it out without shame. That kind of approach changes the way you think, the way you build, the way you lead. And here's the part most people miss. When you obsess over learning, you actually start to win more. But now the wins are deeper. They're earned, not lucky. They're based on insight, not guessing. Because you've tested, iterated, stayed curious longer than anyone else was willing to. And that's a competitive edge that compounds over time. The world is changing fast. What you know today might be outdated tomorrow. But if you've built the habit of constant learning, of treating every mistake as information, every criticism as an invitation, you're not just keeping up. You're staying ahead, and you're doing it without burning out, without pretending to be perfect, without fearing failure. The people who go the furthest aren't the ones who knew the most at the start. They're the ones who kept learning when everyone else thought they already knew enough. They're the ones who weren't afraid to say, I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. That humility, that relentless curiosity, that's what makes the difference. And it's available to anyone willing to put their ego aside and choose learning over being right, every single time. Some of the most powerful ideas in the world come from noticing the obvious, something everyone else is ignoring because it feels too small, too ordinary, too boring. But the magic isn't always in invention. It's in scale. It's in looking at something tiny and asking, what happens if we do this for 1 million people? What about 1 billion? That kind of thinking forces you to move differently. It forces you to stop building for applause and start building for impact. Most people focus on personal productivity or niche solutions, things that affect a handful of people. And that's fine. But if you want to create real, lasting change, you have to look for problems that affect everyone or at least huge groups of people. Then, instead of solving that problem in a one way, you build a system, a tool, a platform. You make something once that solves it thousands or millions of times over. That's the mindset shift, from solving problems manually to solving them mathematically. From how do I help this person? How do I build something that helps everyone like this person, even if I've never met them? Sometimes it's something simple. A form people have to fill out again and again. A slow process that wastes time. A daily struggle that's been normalized. Those are gold mines. If it's boring and repetitive and painful, but everyone has to deal with it, you've found your opportunity. Because if you can make that easier, faster, or even invisible, you won't need to convince people it's valuable. They'll feel it. It's also about systems thinking. One good idea at scale can do more than 1,000 good intentions. And if you design that system well, if it works in different languages on different devices in different parts of the world, you start to realize that scale isn't about size. It's about empathy. You have to understand people at a deep level to build for them at a global level. You can't just throw out a product and hope it sticks. You have to design for the complexity of the real world and still make it feel simple. That's not easy. It takes engineering, of course, but more than that, it takes perspective. You have to step back far enough to see patterns, and then get close enough to care about the individuals behind those patterns. You have to believe that the small stuff matters because it adds up, and that simple tools can quietly reshape daily life. People talk a lot about going viral, but the real goal is going useful. Something that quietly spreads because it just works. Something people don't just try, they depend on. That's what solving problems at scale does. It builds trust. It builds momentum, and eventually it builds movements. So if you're looking for the next big idea, don't just look up. Look around. The world is full of small, frustrating problems just waiting to be solved. Solve them in a way that scales, and you won't just change one life. You'll change millions. There's a dangerous comfort in doing things the way they've always been done. Systems get built, prices get set. Entire industries revolve around habits that no one questions anymore. People accept these broken models because they've been told that's just the way it is. But that's exactly where opportunity lives, right in the cracks of those outdated systems. If something feels unfair, inefficient, or out of reach for most people, it's probably waiting to be disrupted. You don't need to invent something new from scratch. Sometimes, all it takes is asking one bold question. Why does this still work this way? And more often than not, the answer will be some mix of inertia, greed, or lack of imagination. That's the signal. That's your cue to build something better. When you disrupt, you're not just fighting the product. You're fighting the structure. You're challenging assumptions that haven't been challenged in decades. That might mean giving something away for free that others are charging hundreds of dollars for, or creating access where others are putting up walls. It's not about being rebellious for the sake of it. It's about recognizing that the old way only worked for a small group, and it's time to include everyone else. There's always pushback when you do this. People will say you're naive, that your model won't survive, that you're breaking things that don't need fixing. But that resistance is proof you're onto something. Because when you start removing barriers that other people profit from, expect them to defend those walls. Loudly, don't let that stop you. The best disruptions aren't loud, they're effective. They don't just prove a point, they make things better. They show the world a new normal that suddenly makes the old one look ridiculous. And once people see what's possible, they don't go back. That's the real power. Not just creating a better product, but shifting expectations entirely. Disruption isn't chaos. It's clarity. It's seeing the thing that doesn't work and saying, we can do better than this. And then actually doing it without waiting for permission. That doesn't mean it's easy. There are technical challenges, business challenges, emotional challenges. But the core idea, that people deserve better, faster, cheaper, fairer, is what keeps you going, and the reward, it's not just financial, it's emotional. It's knowing that because you were willing to challenge the system, millions of people now have access to something they never would have had otherwise. That's not just innovation, that's impact. And it starts with one decision, to stop accepting broken systems just because they're familiar, and start building better ones, even if everyone else is still clinging to the old rules. There's a point in building something when you're faced with a choice: follow the metrics or follow your values. The easy route is to chase whatever works fastest: more ads, more premium features, more ways to extract value from people. And maybe it grows quickly. Maybe the numbers look good, but underneath you know it's not what you set out to build. You can feel the difference between a company that's chasing clicks and one that's chasing meaning. The truth is, values are what keep you grounded when the pressure hits, when investors want short-term wins, when competitors copy your ideas, when the world tells you to grow faster, charge more, cut corners. That's when your values become more than words on a wall. They become your filter, your compass, your defense against becoming something you never intended to be. You don't build with values because it's trendy. You build with them because they force you to think long-term. They remind you who you're building for and why. If you say you want to help people, then everything you do has to align with that, even when it costs you. That means saying no to decisions that might make more money but hurt trust. That means designing your product in a way that respects your users, even if it means slower growth. Sometimes that's hard. It feels like everyone else is moving faster because they're not playing by the same rules. But when you stick to your values, you're building something different. You're not just trying to win, you're trying to matter. You're not chasing hype. You're creating something real, and people notice. They might not say it at first, but they feel it. They feel it when your product respects their time, when your company communicates honestly, when you choose impact over attention. That kind of integrity builds something rare, trust, and once you've earned it, it compounds. People stick with you. They recommend you, they root for you, because they're not just using your product, they believe in what you stand for. Your values also shape your team. They attract the kind of people who care about more than just a paycheck. People who are proud to work on something meaningful. That culture becomes your engine. It fuels better decisions, stronger relationships, more thoughtful design. It becomes a competitive advantage no one can copy. In a world obsessed with optimization, values are what keep you human. They remind you that it's not just about what you build, but how you build it. And if you do it right, the result is something bigger than a business. It's a force for good, a product people love, a brand people trust, and a legacy that goes far beyond the bottom line.